Yo, what's going on? Welcome back to Generation Red. Today it closes the curtains on the official 24-25 season for Salford City down in League 2. I am going to do a couple more videos over the summer talking about how I think Salford will look going into the new season and also what happened this season, where did things go right and where did things go wrong. But I just wanted to jump on and shoot this video. I think we're all a bit disappointed today. Even though at the start of the season, after last year's sort of run we had in League 2, I would have bit your hand off if I would have said we'd have had a real good push at playoffs this year. So the fact we've done that, but I do think a lot of us, including myself, probably thought playoffs were guaranteed this season, especially going into Carlisle, already relegated. Even though they did beat us early in the season 1-0, they're not an easy opponent to get past. The momentum definitely was with Salford coming off the back of the Colchester game. So yeah, disappointing way to end it. So I thought I'd jump on and just have a quick recap of the season so far. And my thoughts on it, I'll be honest. I think it's fair to say, and we were saying it as well online, and I know a lot of fans were saying it, in pre-season, no one had an idea what to expect from Salford this season. If you look at the squad we actually had, we lost so many key players, and we were talking about this being a full rebuild, which it pretty much was. There was a lot of loanees that came in, a lot of 12-month contracts, and what was good to see is a couple of the younger lads getting a step up. But take ourselves back to pre-season. Obviously, we lost club captain Elliot Watt, who went over to Burton once his contract expired. Alex Cairns went over to Leeds United, again, vice-captain in the squad, big personality. But we also ended up losing the likes of Callum Hendry, who went to MK Dons. Mallon, McLennan left, Theo Vassell went to Barrow. And obviously, Matt Smith decided to hang up his boots and call it a day, who was also our top goal scorer for Salford in such a terrible season last year. So looking at pre-season, the squad was virtually non-existent. But if you actually look at the recruitment in the summer, I personally think Salford's recruitment was absolutely fantastic. I thought we brought in the right sort of players at the right time, on the right deals. And when I say right deals, I know fans want to see permanent signings. You know, you're sort of told not to fall in love with loans, and it felt like everybody was on loan. But if you look outside of the pitch, the club are going through a process where Peter Lim stepped down. He's decided to withdraw his funds from the club and step down as a share owner, meaning the club are now looking for further investment, which we'll touch on later on, but I do hope does come into play as we move into the summer to really give Carl a chance to build off the back of this season and push. But what happens is Peter Lim steps down, the club then have a choice to make. They look to seek further investment. But the only downside of that is the club don't want to spend money now because they don't know where they're going to be in 12 months. And I think we saw that in the transfer market. There was very, very little permanent moves coming in, especially ones that we had to pay money for. If any, I think obviously Dan Chester's came in on a permanent, but he was a free agent. Hadji Minoga came in on a permanent, but it was only a one-year deal. Same with Hacks. Again, all short-term deals where the club didn't know what the next step would be or where they would be within the next 12 months. Hopefully the investment situation is sorted out, but because of the high turnover in players, I think that massively affected us at the start of the season. We straight away lost to Port Vale. I mean, don't get me wrong, Port Vale have bounced straight back up. Good team as well, Port Vale. So with the high turnover of personnel, and obviously the likes of Osama Ashley, who was here last year, but he spent the majority of it on the medical bench, he essentially came in this season as a new player as well. So there was a lot of high turnover, and I definitely think that's shown going into the first few games of the season. It actually took Salford 6 games, including cups, to pick up our first win. And some of them games were very, very big ones. We played Port Vale, we played Bradford, we played AFC Wimbledon, and MK Dons, who was our first win in a 1-0 home result. They were big teams at the time. I know MK didn't quite live up to the expectation of this season, but you know, I was tipping them to be automatic playoff promotion. I thought they had enough in the tank to do it, but it's just not quite worked out that way. But the recruitment for me personally, I thought was pretty spot on, working with what we had at the time. You know, Tyrese Forner, I know some fans are not a huge fan of him. I personally am a massive fan of Tyrese Forner. I actually don't know what a lot of them are watching that I'm not watching. Maybe he holds on to the ball a bit too long, but I was crying out last season for an athletic midfielder to come in, to grab the ball, and just try and make something happen. You know, if he tries 9 times, he might make a mistake 9 times, but at one time he does break through. Sometimes it can change a game for Salford, and that's what I thought we were missing last season, especially alongside Elliot Watt, and we got it this year with Tyrese Forner. And as I say, he might not be everybody's cup of tea, but he was certainly mine, and I'm a massive, massive fan of him. The recruitment of like Matty Young, Stefan Negru, Hacks, Cole Stockton, I know Cole Stockton again divides opinion. I definitely think we needed an active goal scorer up front, and I think Carl thought he was going to get that with Stockton, but also with Francis and Kouassi around him as well. But sort of none of them really lived up to the high scoring record of the likes of Matt Smith, and it's difficult to sort of put them in a category with Matt Smith. But when you come off such a terrible season and Matt Smith finishes the top goal scorer in the league, you've kind of got to look at it as well. So, and I think the lack of goals from Salford this season had a massive impact on why we missed out on playoffs. At one point, what I do want to say though, the reason I'm doing this video, I just want to touch on the highs. I think the fan base this year has been absolutely class. The away games have been absolutely rocking, which is great. So we just took 4 coaches to Carlisle. Unfortunately, a week ago when I was absolutely devastated because Myles had a football match at 10:30 kickoff. Yeah, the only one he's had all season as well. Everything else has been 9 o'clock. But 10:30, we couldn't get to this game. But I just want to say shout out to all the fans that have been making the trip away days. And the last few games at home have been absolutely incredible atmosphere-wise. The Colchester game, the stadium was rocking. It was amazing to be there. And that's definitely down to all the fans who are showing up week in, week out and getting behind the team. That is definitely a massive improvement on last season where at times I was walking out the stadium personally thinking, we're done, you know what I mean? And like I say, a couple of games we actually lost this season, I was walking around going, I don't think we deserved a loss there. We actually played all right. We're just desperate for a goal scorer. I tweeted it a few times. And I think it's shown, you know, like I said earlier, the lack of goals definitely just killed us off in some games and some important games as well. I mean, we'll go back to the Accrington game quite recently that we lost. I think that was a turning point in the season. I think Salford even pick up a point there. We're now making this video going, well, you know, we're in the playoffs. Who've we got? Let's go to Wembley and smash it. But it's games and times like that where, you know, we don't get it over the line. And now we're sitting here recapping what could have been. I think overall, if you take Salford's season into account compared to last year, we did finish today at Carlisle with a 2-2 draw, which took us to 18 wins, 15 draws and 13 losses. But when you compare that to last year, Salford won 13 games, drew 12, but lost a massive 21 games, which is why relegation at one point was looking quite likely. Carl Robinson's turned it round. You know, there's no other way to say it. I know fans, again, are divided on the opinion of Carl Robinson. I personally think this is the man, if he does stay around and doesn't go and get a high-profile job up the leagues, I do think this is the man that will take us to League One. I think the fact he's worked this season, and it's pretty, you know, the club are never going to come out and say it, but it's pretty clear he didn't have financial investment this season. We brought in a lot of loan deals, which now, and I'll do a video on this in the next couple of weeks, changes the way we look again next season. You know what I mean? You know, Tyrese Fauna's going back, Matty Young's going back, Hadji's on a 12-month. Hopefully, I'm hearing down the grapevine, we've got a potential extension on his contract, which I'm hoping is true. But there's so many players out of contract. Curtis Till, Garbutt, I think. Kelly Amai's an interesting one. I personally think Kelly will go up and play at a higher level next season, whether it's League One or the Championship. I think he's got that in his locker. I know he's under contract at Salford, so he can't go anywhere. Osama Ashley's contract up. I am hoping Salford have got an extension on that as well. It'd be crazy not to, but these things do happen in football, don't they? So the squad, again, next season might be completely different. And just touching on the loans, like I say, even Kouassi and Frankie, they've both gone back to their respective clubs. So we're already 6 or 7 players down, and that's not including the players out of contract. So is this going to be another rebuild somewhat for Carl? And if it is, I hope he does get the financial investment. As I say, we need to replace Peter Lim's money, and I'm hoping that is done in the near future to really give Carl the chance to put some money into his team, fill in them roles that he needs. I think if you look at the players he brought in this summer, and as I say, some of them have divided opinion, but he's identified weaknesses. You know what I mean? He's brought in the likes of Stefan Negru, who he knew from Oxford, who's come on leaps and bounds, and I'd love him to stay at Salford, even though it's highly unlikely. I'm a big fan of Fauna, as I say. Hakeem, I don't think he's quite done it in a... I think he's one of the best technical players we have, but I don't think he's quite done it in a Salford shirt. But I also feel like he's probably going to go in the summer anyway. But on paper, you look at him and go, player there. So you can see the type of player Carl Robinson is looking at. And hopefully he gets a bit of money behind him, as I say, to go into this summer and rebuild it. I don't want to keep this video for too long. I'll do a full season breakdown and I'll also do a how does Salford look going into 25-26. But I just wanted to say, as a Salford fan, it's been really exciting to watch Salford this year, regardless of where we ended up today and how gutted we all are. I get it. We thought playoffs were nailed on. I think everybody did. I think the players will tell you they did as well, even though it's never guaranteed. Like, Carlisle had nothing to play for. They were already relegated, but they had a tough team and no one's going to fall on the sword. You know what I mean? They've got a chance to give their home fans on the last day of the season a chance to give them a nod and say thank you by beating Salford. And they put in a shift. The lads brought it round. You know what I mean? It was 2-0 down, brought it back to 2-2. We was unlucky not to win today. But it is games like that you should be putting to bed. Accrington game, I think when we look at the season as a whole, the Accrington game was the one where we sort of shot ourselves in the foot a little bit. We win there. Like I say, we're sat here now talking about playoffs football. But it is what it is, isn't it? It is what it is. But shouts to all the Salford fans that have been consistently following what we do. Shouts to all the Salford fans that have been making the Peninsula a great atmosphere for the last few weeks. And all season, to be honest. Especially the away supporters. But, yeah. Make sure you click subscribe and let us know in the comments what you think. Personally, thank you, Carl Robinson. Thank you for the Salford players this season. Like I said, they made me enjoy watching it again. Regardless of how today ended and where we ended up in the league. But, yeah. Click subscribe, let us know in the comments what you thought of Salford this season, and see you on a video soon after I go for a cry somewhere, alone, listening to Dirty Old Town. One day.
Shawty on the beat.